welcome to another episode of Morelia Python Radio. This is episode 537. We're actually talking carpet pythons, Owen. How about that?
On this show? That's weird. Yeah.
It's telling me quality check. Oh, close that. Okay.
Yeah.
We have Dominic Carbonneau. That's my French accent right there.
It was perfect. It was no notes. I loved it. Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna be talking carpet pythons with him in a few. But first, there is one thing we have to do. Texas Carpet Fest. I got it right.
Yes. Yeah, you did. I wore this to try to throw you off the Southern Carpet Fest T-shirt. Yeah,
I see how you roll.
Yeah.
Although I don't have the date in front of me because I've come unprepared, Owen, and it's not on my other note. It's not on my. Oh wait.
Come on, you got it. You got it.
It's when
I believe in you.
Do you?
It's October 14th. God damn it! All right, it's October 14th.
What kind of co-host lets me just hang out there like that? I mean, come on.
Cause I have to. It's training. I can't just go in there and save you because then you'll expect it every time. I have to make sure that you can stand on your own. Listen, I won't be around forever. It's
yeah, I think I'll be gone before you. It's they're doing a silent auction. If you want to get involved with that, hit up Mike Taylor, and it's at Replandia, which just opened, by the way, which is pretty fabulous, man.
And they put out a video about their Komodo and all the stuff that they have there. Yeah, I'm dying to go.
So it's in Johnson City, Texas, and it's from, what is it?
3 o'clock.
They're cutting off at, 3 to 11, right? They're cutting it off at 11?
Yeah.
Obviously. Okay. All right.
They will not let you just run around at the zoo at midnight. I mean.
Guess what you can't bring?
Animals, because it's a zoo.
Yeah.
It seems like people don't want you to bring your animals to their collections. Weird.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Also, make sure you check out Cold Blooded Cafe. We have our NPR affiliate link. Gives you a 10% discount?
10% discount. It's code NPR10 to get a 10% discount off your order. I actually just placed an order today because I am out of rodents. And apparently you need that for the masses.
Weren't we supposed to do an order together?
Yeah, I got extra. Don't worry. Just let me know what you need. We'll figure it out. Plus, this is going to be a reoccurring monthly thing, so don't worry. I'll get you. It's fine.
All right, enough jibber jabber. Let's
my
get
army
it on
fed.
with Dominic here, and let's start some carpets. I've been thinking about this all day. We haven't talked carpet pythons in a long time. So, what's up, Dominic? How you been?
I've been pretty good. Thanks, and you?
Good. Yeah,
good. Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming on and talking carpet pythons. We don't really talk a lot of carpet pythons on this show. They're a mystery to us. Yeah. We've slowly transitioning into a boa podcast. So
I have on the docket. We're going to be talking about the ocelot gene in jungle carpets that you've been working with. You had female jungle also. Is it partho? Is it retained sperm? We're not sure. We're going to get into that. Diamond pythons. We got to talk that, right? And what happened with your season? I mean, you had how many clutches did you produce last season?
It was a very busy season. I tried for 12. I only tried for 12.
Okay.
But 11 hit. So it made it a bit busy. Obviously not as bad as somebody else in this recording.
Don't know what. I mean, I don't know who. I don't know who you're talking about. I mean, Eric does need to take a step back. I mean, and calm down. But yeah,
I don't even get how you could do that because you're on a full-time employment, right? You've got your full job and all that, and I'm kind of the same way, right? And I don't even understand how you can take care of that many babies. Like I'm always overwhelmed as soon as I hit over the 100 babies, and holy crap, it takes time.
I stopped counting because I don't want to know the exact number of how many babies hatched here. I got to like 100 and I was just like, oh no. And now we're just going to stop counting. So
just as a curiosity, I'm like where you're at in Canada, right?
Yep.
How does it differ as far as like the US, as far as, is there like an outlet to sell that? Is reptiles becoming more popular?
Like you go to a show, it's all the same thing as you guys. It's going to be leopard geckos, bearded dragons. It's going to be the common boa morphs, the ball python morphs. And that's basically 80% of the show, maybe 85. And then you've got all the everything else. So carpet pythons is a dead thing in Canada. If I go there, I don't think I've bought a carpet python at a show in 5, 6, 7 years because there's no such thing as a carpet python with lineage or anything. It'll be, like a jungle jag, or it'll be carpet python, like just written carpet python, and you don't know what it is, and that's about it. So there's nothing, I would say nothing of quality that you could find. That being said, there are a very few amount of breeders here. There's one good friend of mine, Don Patterson, which I know you guys have had on the show, and he's probably the one that produces the largest amount. He produces around 150 to 200 carpets, so still a pretty good amount, but he doesn't sell almost anything to Canada because there's no market. He might sell less than 2 or 3%, which would be probably to me or one or two other people in Canada, and then there's me and Shan Mellinson that breeds carpets in Canada. That's about it. I like it. Wow. Us three put together. I think there might be one clutch, maybe 2 clutches here or there, and that's about it. No one else. So really, what's the market? There's almost none. I don't sell almost anything at all in Canada. I wholesale and I export, and I didn't want to export, but I had to learn how. Because that was the outlet. And realistically, I breed and I get a lot of clutches, but every clutch I breed with a purpose, which is I want that snake for me. And then, I get it. And then once I have it, then I have all the other ones that now I have to find a home for. But as a general rule, I can get them out pretty fast. I think I'm down to 25 babies left from this year, which is really not a lot. And, so 25 babies, and I'm just in the process of setting up the last shipment to sell them all. But I'm happy selling them at half the price and letting them go because I don't know. I'm not a seller. I'm just a guy who likes playing with his. Well, not playing. Well, that sounds bad. Just a guy who likes to take care of his snakes in his basement.
Sure.
So is it? So you said basically all 25. You expect are going to go with this other shipment, and you'll just be down to no babies with minus maybe your holdbacks.
Yeah, I definitely hold back. So out of the 11 clutches, I think I kept back about 17 or so, and which is a lot, but it all depends on what you breed, right? So I hit on a couple of things. I don't know if I can go through it if you guys want to. I've been trying to go for albino granite for a long time. I hit it last year. The baby died within 5 or 6 days, which was horrible. This year, again, and my pair is just a double het. So you're producing a lot of babies let's be honest, you don't want. I'll have some albinos, they sell well. I'll have some granites, they sell well. But the 66% possible double hets are undesirables. And it's really unfortunate, but you kind of have to go through that path to get there. So I hit it again this year, and this one is alive and has taken a few meal, and pretty happy that I'm finally got there.
Good.
So that was one of the clutches. I went through 5 clutches of jungles, which we can get to after a little later if you guys want to go through. This year was the first time I was trying to breed for snow, which is something that I don't get, but nobody breeds for snow in carpets. It's weird. I think there's one person in the States that goes for them, and that's it. And I don't know why. It's a really
I know a guy that tried for snow for a while, and
snow kind of broke me. I had this Xantic, and I could never get her to produce, man. And finally, I got her to produce, and I have a pair of double hets. That's just sitting there waiting to be bred, because I don't know, like when I got into carpets, snow was like the dream, you know. It's like, oh my God, a white carpet python. This is going to be nuts. And yeah, you're right. That was in 2009, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be after I get the hypo to breed. That'll be the next thing. You're like, hey, Owen, take these. And yeah, I'm like, all right.
No, I'm going to produce that.
Okay.
Or
die trying. Yeah. Okay.
So, you have those ones that you want to do.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know.
So you have a pair of double hets, you said?
Well, I had, 2 females double hets. One wasn't ready, one was. I have a male snow, which is full snow, but he was just hitting his 2 years old, right? So you're like, I'm going to try him, but I'll see. And I had a mature male double het. The mature male double het would go 1 day, the other ones would go 6 days at a time, so hoping, but the snow never hooked up with her at all. It was always the double het, of course. So produced a little bit of everything. 3, what I'm going to call albinos. 2 are extremely light. 1 is much darker. It makes you think maybe 2 of them are snow, but honestly, I think they're just all albinos. I didn't hit it. So
I'm curious, what do they look like when they hatch? Snows.
Yeah. How do you tell the difference?
So from what I've talked to other people, is the pattern is very, very faded. It kind of looks like they're almost like not creamsicle, but like just a completely beige snake. You know how an albino, you can usually see the different pattern. When you've got the sun glow, you can really tell an orange on white. Like the sun glows are very different. The albinos are, I think the pattern's very easily. So these ones, to me, they almost look like they could have been snow, but I can see the pattern too much. So as to how to tell at this point, it's just a waiting game. So I don't think I hit it at all. But so next year I've got 2 females ready, and my male will be 3 at that point. So I'm sure I'll have a better chance. Yeah. It's a fun project. That being said, 2 years ago now, or last year, I did, I'm going to call them triple hets, but they're not triple hets. I did a super caramel exanthic to a albino to produce all caramel hets, albinos, and het exanthic to be able to go for the moon at one point, which seems pretty stupid, but I produced those I call them triple hets, but they're not, caramel double hets. And so that's a project for the future, which makes a lot of holdbacks to hold. I produced spotted pythons this year. I produced pygmy pythons, which we can go into pygmies later, but holy crap, those are rough. And jungles, and I'm trying to think maybe, West Papuans. I produced 1 pure clutch of West Papuans, which I love, but they're horrible here. I can't even sell a pure for $100, which would be maybe, $70 for you guys. They don't sell. There's it's the worst. There's no market for them. They're horrible. It's rough. And so that's the one where I do it, and that's always the last clutch. And most of the ones I have left are West Papuans that are not selling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is this they're just not flashy enough, or
I don't know. I guess I think they're beautiful, but yeah, and yeah. So and I mean they've got some genes to them. I've got the double het marble and one that is het exanthic. So I've produced a lot of exanthics visuals in the past few years. So now all those are grown up. So those are going to be the new generation going. I personally love the exanthics in West Papuan. I think it's a really nice look.
It is. It's better than the coastal exanthic in a lot of instances. Like they seem to be brighter and kind of bluer. So yeah.
The coastal exanthics I've always had a soft spot for though, because I find they look like inlands. They I really like that look. So, and I did 1 pure coastal pairing, which was the super caramel exanthic, that male, which I don't know if you want to see him. He's in the in Nick Mutton's and Julander's book. So I was pretty happy about that. Okay. So he's in that picture for that morph. And I bred him to a tiger caramel. And next year he's going to a hypo tiger caramel, which I'm looking forward to the hypo gene. My girl's huge. So that's a new one for me as well. Interesting. I think, and I don't know what you guys think, but to me, I think there's tiger in almost every pure coastal, because I find every time you breed a tiger to a non-tiger that has no striping, you almost get a dominant stripe on almost everything. And I don't know if that's your experience or not, but I wonder if the tiger gene has almost slowly been spread into tons of other babies, and they're sold as non-tigers, but it doesn't change that they're still carrying that allelic genes that tend to pair up when you put a tiger with it, and you get a lot higher percentage than you would expect. Thoughts?
I mean, I think coastal through stripe anyway. And if you add one animal in their lineage that maybe was striped or a tiger, hell yeah, that's going to increase the likelihood of them having more. And I would 100% agree that since we moved away from slapping needless names or labels on carpet pythons like a lesser tiger, everything just became coastal. So, of course, it all got mixed into everything else. And, yeah, at one point, tigers were getting inserted into every project because everybody wanted that clean look and that good striping. So I would say you're hard-pressed to find a jaguar that doesn't have tiger in its lineage somewhere, too.
Yeah, I think for me, the tiger thing it's kind of a weird thing. It's like a morph and a line at the same time, right? And it's like, yeah. I think the thing is that I think Owen's right that you'll see striping pop up, and especially coastals, jungles seem to be weird for us here in the States, but I think that's very doable like it is for coastals. But you see it a lot in coastals, I think, that they tend to lean towards striping. So, if you have that lineage somewhere in there that has some type of stripe, regardless of whether it's a Balin tiger or some other type of tiger, I think that it's going to definitely throw stripes. And it's weird. You're right, man. I've bred, God, I think the first time I bred, I can't remember what it was. I can't even remember the pairing, but I produced these animals that were like perfectly striped, and I'm like, there's no stripes in the pairing.
Where did these come from? Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so. Did we lose him? Oh, there he is.
No, I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
I think it can definitely happen. So
yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, it was just I think that clutch was 20, and 18 were 95+% striped.
Wow,
damn!
So it was quite surprising. I expected maybe a third, maybe half, and I mean the male is completely banded. Nothing.
So where do your tigers come from? Where did they come from?
That one is considered a Balin tiger. Okay. It's one that did come through from the United States, and it is a very, very hard thing to do for us Canadians, getting snakes from you guys. Like, it can take a few years to manage to make it go through.
Wow.
Really?
Almost everything in Canada is from Europe. So, like, most of the people that want to import, we're importing from UK python or star pythons or things like that, because we can get the permits approved in less than a week and they can ship next week. So It's and if you want to talk about diamonds, we can talk about diamonds. I bought 3 snakes this year, which is more than my usual because I almost never buy snakes. But just because you kind of, at one point you can produce almost everything you want. But I've had a lone male inland forever, and actually on the last show we were together, I talked about it. And I've gotten 2 females since then, and my females turned out after they got here, and I checked them to be females. To be males. So those have left again, and. So I got a 1.2 inland from UK, and I'm in the process of trying to figure out a plan to get some diamonds from star pythons, because nobody breeds diamonds in Canada, or the people that do have not produced any in the past 4 years.
Jesus.
There's no one that has produced a diamond in 4 years, so it really makes it almost impossible. And it's I don't know if you guys want to go a bit into diamond talk now, but I've been looking into lineage, and diamonds are not my thing. Like, I'm pretty nerdy when it comes to carpets, but diamonds, and I've been struggling. I think I reached out to you at the start of the week regarding different lineages, and it's really interesting how the European lineage is completely different than what we have here. And I don't know. Like I was trying to. Well, you've got the basic lines here and you guys I might need help because I'd have to look at my text. But when you've got San Diego Zoo, you've got you guys got to help me out here. The Val line or the Vale line.
Yeah, Gary Valles. Then you have my girl. What is she?
The Gothenburg.
Yeah, that's the one. Not that. Oh, what's the other one? I got it from Canada, actually.
From Michael Islam. Is it possible?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What the hell's the name of it? I'm like Riverbank Zoo.
Riverbank. Yeah.
Sorry.
I think there's there's Lazic line at your end, and I think there's what's RBZ Riverbank Zoo. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, Riverbank Zoo. Yep.
So I'm looking, and I've been trying to inquire and talk about other people's lines, and then I've heard of the Casper line in Europe. I've heard of what's the other line? There's Casper, and there's 1 second. Let me just pull it up, see if I can.
Well, so Casper's line of diamonds, are they an actual separate line?
So they are the Casper line, and the other one is London Zoo. And I was inquiring because I'm going through one person to see where they came from and all that. And then in the end, what I found out is both of them are basically confiscated animals that were brought in from Australia. The London Zoo was, I think it was seized in the UK and it was brought to the London Zoo. And the Casper was a guy in Scandinavia that seized the animals. A guy in Scandinavia that got it from seized animals in Norway, something like that. Anyway, I've looked at it, and then I'm trying to figure out what we consider pure or not. And then animals from Australia, are they pure? Because Australia has the same problems as us, right? They're mixing everything. So if you get animals that are smuggled and it comes to our side of the world, we will call it pure because it's going to be, or we're going to call it a new bloodline, but it really shouldn't be pure. It should just be a new bloodline. But that bloodline could be as tarnished as anything we have here, because how do you know some Aussie isn't breeding with his jungles and then he created, I don't know, at some point 88% the jungle diamonds, and then we smuggled that in Europe somehow through the magical bridge in Germany, and then and then it's called a new line in Canada or in US, and then what do? We are like, oh well, it's our new line. So I don't know, smuggled animals, are they a pure line? Are they just a new bloodline that could be pure or could be very unpure when you think about it? I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like I kind of see the way you're thinking, because here I have my 88% jungle diamond that's worth like $100. But if I tell somebody overseas it's a pure diamond python and they're going to give me smuggler money, I can see where you kind of go with that.
Well, how do you know? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. This is, a couple thoughts. One, I think of the idea of carpet python and I sort of was talking to you about this, but it sort of changed once I started seeing, really paying attention to wild carpets and then going and seeing some and whatnot. And you have, how do you know that diamond python wasn't taken from the intergrade zone? It's not
very true.
They can look like diamonds just as much, but now it has coastal in it. Or to your point, it's breeding, and it's a captive bred type of situation. And, Australia is big into the carpet python morphs and crossing and all that. So you don't know if you have some kind of situation where that goes, where you think you're getting a pure diamond python. And then the ones in the States, so there's the Cypress Creek, which is kind of a questionable one, where there's been talk from the actual guy that got them, where he said that he basically smuggled them, right? And then but people don't want to believe it. It's weird. The diamond python hobby part of the carpet world is sort of like its own thing, and very particular about. And I get it. I understand it, and I get it. But I don't know if I put as much weight into pure, that term pure as I used to.
I think I would use the word bloodline, and like you say, Cypress Creek is the question mark because it's smuggled, or is it because they don't believe the history? And why would the Cypress Creek be any purer than any other smuggled line? Because as soon as it's smuggled, it basically means it came from Australia, and we have no idea its history.
I think that
we're taking the word of the guy who sold it.
I think the thing that we're forgetting, right, is like think of the reptile world back then. All right, I mean, think of the reptile world now and the drama that comes into play when somebody has something that somebody else. It's like you have to trash another person's project in order to like raise yours up. Sure. It's like, oh well, your diamond is worth shit because it has Cypress Creek in it, where mine is the greatest thing ever. I mean, Nick has animals with Cypress Creek, so what's that tell you? But at the same time, like his way of justifying it is his way of justifying it. I mean, we have those Russian tigers that we're sort of working on that supposedly came from somewhere in Brisbane, but he doesn't buy into that, right? That came from the Moscow Zoo. They kept these coastal carpets forever. There's documentation that they had Morelia and a lot of Morelia in the zoo. So it's kind of like I don't know. It's like, who do you believe? And then I just think of like, if somebody wanted to pawn something on, like say somebody wanted to get out of the, they're like, oh, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, they're not going to sell if they're crosses, but they will sell if they're pure. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. You have to worry about that. And I don't know those people from back then. I never met them. I don't know what their integrity is like. I'm just going by somebody's word, I guess, at the end of the day. And I guess that's really what it comes down to. If I'm getting something from Nick or Paul, I would take their word for it. Doesn't mean that what they're saying is necessarily true, but I'm gonna take their word that the information that they got is the information that they're giving me, if that makes sense.
Well, that's the end part, is like, where are you comfortable drawing the line, and how far are you willing to go? Because eventually, unless you have GPS coordinates and you were the person who collected it yourself, it is going to be taking the word of somebody else somewhere.
Yeah. Diamonds are a weird one. And then, you have San Diego Zoo, you have Riverbank Zoo, and, what was the other? Well, I guess that's really the two main ones, right? That they say are separate lines. But they're all producing reduced pattern diamond pythons.
Right.
How can that just randomly pop up in two different lines? I mean, come on. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
that tells me they're the same.
Same thing.
Yeah, I think they were probably smuggled in, and they sent some to this zoo, and they sent some to this zoo. When you say that in the diamond python world, that's like sacrilege. And I understand why, like if they really believe that what they believe, you're sort of knocking down their project. That's what I have. But I also am willing to say that it's possible that it's not. But you know what? That snake is badass, and I don't care if it has a name on it or not. To me, it's a diamond python. So
I'll be fine with it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's an interesting world. Let's just put it this way. I just started dipping, and I don't even have diamonds yet. Like, to me, they've been the snake I've wanted forever that I just can't buy because it's unavailable here. So I've been, but that world is crazy. It's crazier than carpet pythons.
Yeah. And I would say that is something that's kind of turned me off of diamonds as well. Is like, when you do dip, if you just want to dip your toe in there, you're still going to get sideways glances from everybody else who have put a lot of stock, effort, and time into having all diamond collections. So, it can be difficult.
I think the rest of the Morelia world should take it from the jungle python world of carpets, right? They just accepted that. Yeah, maybe there's diamond mixed in there. I don't care. Still,
doesn't matter.
An awesome snake, and we're calling it a jungle carpet.
It's my pure jungle. Yeah.
And now it's like things that and you would, and I guess this is my point, right? Years ago, you would see on the Morelia Python forums like people actually fighting each other and saying like, your carpets are shit, and like, I have all these localities, and now those localities are actually they're like Rockhampton is considered a jungle carpet.
Jungle carpet.
It's just like I don't know. I kind of took a I think it was it was a Reptile Fight Club, and Chuck was saying, and they were sort of talking about this, and Chuck was saying, if you have the really pretty snake, does it matter?
Does it matter?
But it kind of does. You know what I mean? It kind of does, though. You know,
if you want me to really irritate you more, Eric, I just produced an albino granite, right?
Right.
It's pure.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. 110%. Yes.
Right.
Because technically, and this is something that I will never put that word to it. To me, it was always just, if you do a cross, go crazy. So it doesn't even matter because it's not pure. Mm-hmm. And in this case, to me, a Darwin with an IJ is just a cross. That's all it is. But now technically, apparently, that is considered pure, which I think is funny.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. What else could we add there to still keep it pure?
Well, there's not much else in albino.
Cape Yorks.
You could toss some Cape York in there and it would still be.
How
but
dare you, sir?
Tell me I'm wrong.
You could.
But that's the thing, is that so many people, and the reason we have so much friction is so many people built their collection on, I will have nothing but the best and purest animals I can get my hands on. And then something happens and it's not. And it's completely beyond their control. It's not like they went out and did something. It's just the rules changed. And I know that some people kind of take that stuff personally and why they always want to be sure that it's pure.
You feel duped, right?
Right.
You kind of feel like you were sold this thing as this, and then it turns out that it's not. And now you're like,
it's still locality, though. It makes it
exactly.
The locality is what matters, right? Like if you have gelatin jungles, you don't care if they're considered Chennai or if they're considered. I think they're Chennai now, right? Are they all? They've always been.
Yeah. They've always been. Yeah.
They've always been. But you could cross them to a coastal. It would still be a Chennai, but really in the end, it's a locality, and that's all that matters.
Right.
It doesn't really matter what name's attached. So to me, I don't think it really changes much for that. And I guess I'm sure you figured out by now. I'm like right on the fence. I have no problems breeding for Morse, and I have no problems breeding for purity because I have a lot of purity. But just like everyone, I've got my lines. And there's a lot of those lines. Like number one, the hybrids I will not produce. I think it's wrong. I will not touch that. And I don't get it. But then when I look at like a Bredley Jag Hypo Stonewash, I'm looking at like, holy shit. Right? So, but
that
for
stuff
me,
that Don produced is like,
it is. It's insane. It's insane. Every time I tell him I'm not going to touch that, I don't even want it. But holy shit. It's incredible.
How much of a kick of teeth is that, where it's like the Canadian carpet market is so small, and then Don Patterson just keeps churning out these really good-looking carpets that are mutts, and you're like, no, I mustn't. And you're like, that's got to be terrible. So,
have you seen those in person?
I have not. He's in BC, right? Or actually Victoria. So he's the complete opposite end of.
Oh, thank God.
That's
why you don't have them.
That's why you don't have them. You get far away.
We've traded probably a few hundred snakes by now, so I could have. It's not for me. Like for example, inlands. I've had a male inland for over 6 years and no females. Do you know how many times I thought maybe I could put it with a Darwin? Have you seen the albino? Have you seen the albino inlands? Like, wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And what's the albino silver peppered and stuff like that over in Australia?
No, there's what's his name? Shit. Anyway, there's a guy in Australia. I'm getting like Justin, man. I can't remember names. But he has this thing that I've been watching since he's been growing it up. And to your point, it's like orange and yellow, and it's an albino inland, and it's just insane. I'm like, oh my God, that thing is crazy. I don't know. Do you think here's a thought when it comes to this kind of thing? Do you think that the newer lines of like the subspecies, I guess, that we're working with, do you think that maybe we should not mess with those? Like jungles and diamonds and jungles and coastals have sort of been done at this point, and Darwin's mixed in there, but you have like these other ones that, well, I guess it's really just inlands, right? Do you think that maybe we should keep that, its own thing?
Well, I mean, I do.
I think what you should do is you should have a pair of pure, so that you can produce
Look at how
pure. Stop it. All right, you can produce pure animals, but I also think that we wouldn't have these scream animals or anything like that if somebody didn't kind of venture out. That being said, I will not be the one to do it. I can't do it. I can't physically do it, but someone will at some point, and I kind of want to make sure that it is somebody who will represent those crossed animals better. I think there will be.
You want to know what the problem
eventually
is? No, go ahead.
Somebody will.
Go ahead, Eric.
No. Go ahead. What's the problem?
It's one of my pet peeves. So the problem is here, like you said, an albino inland, right? Or you say a jungle jag, or you say all this. But why do we only use one of the locality of both, right? It's not a jungle jag. It's a jungle coastal jag, right? Yes. But you only hear it as a jungle jag. Point. And it's not an albino inland, but it's not an albino inland. It would be a Darwin albino inland. But for some reason, whenever you produce something and you bring in the other gene, we drop the other one just like it doesn't exist. And we automatically
never even thought of that.
And there's no percentages on it. There's nothing, right? Like, so if you're the first one, it should be a 50, or you should do 50%, I don't know, jungle, 50% coastal, then 75% jungle, 25%. Like, but we don't do that. Why is it that we only keep the information that is important for selling that misleads the buyer to think that your inland is a pure albino or your albino is a pure inland? Because there's no Darwin in there.
Because that's the hook. I gotta get you to swallow the hook that it's an albino inland, and then after you've got it in your hands and you're like, oh my god, then you go, oh yeah, it's a Darwin mix.
But like, you guys aren't trying to sell me anything, and you still said albino inland. You didn't even consider putting Darwin in there.
See, because that's in that.
That is a great point.
That is a great point. But I'm from the time when if you had a busy pattern jaguar, you called it. Oh, what the hell did they call it? An ornate jaguar. An ornate jaguar. All right, what is special about nothing?
See,
nothing.
I think the problem with this though is that it's like when you comment on history of anything, and like you're not taking into account what was going on at the time. Like it's easy to say that stuff now, but at the time, it was like when it was first produced in jaguars and morphs. At this point, not even in carpets, just in reptiles alone. Was sort of like this new thing, and you produce this thing, and I think that probably that's like when people really started churning out carpets, and we say it now that if you produce a clutch of carpets, you're going to get a wacky one in there somewhere. It's like it doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're mixing or what morphs you're working with. There's always this.
Somebody's going to come out.
Usually doesn't make it, but it's usually like it's usually like this wacky pattern or wacky color and pattern or But I think that they were just trying to maybe separate things out, right? Because it's at the beginning, right? I mean, think of, I don't know if ball pythons did this too, but remember it was like the lesser and the platy daddy and all this shit.
But that's like, there's also the selling aspect of it. Like there's a reason we don't call, retic berm hybrids retic berm. We just, it's a baddie.
That sounds dirty.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Everything has to have a flashy, cool name. It's not a Maclot's carpet. It's a carplot or whatever the hell they call that monstrosity. So it's that whole part of it too.
But it
helps draw you in. Yeah,
it's like a jungle jag has a better ring to it.
It does
than a jungle coastal jag.
Yes,
because when you say jungle jag, I think of neon yellow jag with just like crazy. When you say coastal jungle jag, even though it's the same thing, immediately I think of that dirty
the
brown
ugliest
jungle
one.
jag.
The ugliest one. It's got one eye. It twitches.
Why is that? That's oh my god! You blew my mind, man. I can't believe we've never thought about this before.
But then also,
it's been my pet peeve forever.
But no, you can add things that enhance it too, because it's now a diamond jungle jaguar.
Yeah, so but you can't say the coastal.
Right. You can't. Coastal's bad.
Dirty.
We don't want to talk. Coastal's dirty. Coastal's brown. Diamond makes it better. So you can add things too. It's a diamond jungle jaguar. It's a gamma jungle jaguar.
But I think to people coming in, right? Yeah. To your point, I get what you're saying. It's they look at it, they look and they think jungle is is that a morph, or is that like, oh, jag must be a different type of jungle or something? And
people think jaguar is a python.
They go and ask some carpet breeder, and they're like, how do you not know that this is a and it's just like, okay.
Well, when you're coming from an outside point of view, even if you're a snake guy, like I can't keep Ritics where I live; it's illegal. But I've started listening to the Ritic Lounge podcast just because it's something different, and I'm starting to enjoy it. Right? Sorry, I plugged somebody else than you guys.
It's all right. We do that all the time.
We love those guys.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm one of their Patreons.
But there you go. I don't know anything about Ritics. I don't understand the SD, but I've been slowly learning about it. But to me, this is foreign. They're saying terms and terms and terms. But in the end, if somebody comes in and listens to your podcast and they listen to people talk about all this stuff, it's just jargon, because nobody here is going to be. You're going to be saying something about, I don't know, if you bring up the facts of, I don't know, even if you just say Jag, or if you say Miss, what's the name, Mrs. Cheese?
Madam Blueberry?
There you go. If you say Madam Blueberry, you just assume everybody knows. Or if you say Bill and Tiger, you assume everybody knows what it is. Or all those type of things. Yeah. We all know, because you've been slowly growing up. And each time there's a new thing in the past 20 years, you've learned about it, and it's just nothing. But for somebody coming an outsider's point of view, like my outsider's point of view from Ritics, is I don't understand half the things they're saying, because there's so many morphs, there's so many things that I would never even consider going to that, because I couldn't keep up. I have no idea what's going on. I don't understand any of the names. I don't understand what's a locality, what's a morph, what's any of that. But to many people, they listen to these shows, and it's like that. When I listen to the Colibrid podcast, it's the same thing. They very rarely say the real name. They just use the scientific name, and the scientific name means, the Latin. And it doesn't mean much to me if it's not a snake that I keep. I can tell you the Latin names for maybe the 15 pythons that I've worked with, but nothing else.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'm terrible with the Latin. I keep some of these things, and people are like this. I'm like, what now? I don't even know what the hell that is. Like, right. Yeah.
That I do struggle with, right? Because I'm not really a colubrid guy per se. So when they're yelling out these names, I know all the names. It's just that I can't equate it with a snake, right? Unless I go and now I have to go and look something up, and it's like, oh man.
That thing. Great. Yeah.
I got enough things to look up. There's only so much disk space in the brain,
I mean, we take those kind of things for granted, that that I know there's coastal in a jungle jag because of the jag, but I've had people contact me asking me about jaguar pythons, not coastal python, not carpet python, jaguar pythons. So a lot of this stuff can get lost in translation, and I have had conversations with people that don't know why the letters MBB are in front of their coastal carpet, but it was a pretty coastal carpet. And then you have to be like, well, it's Madam Blueberry. And then they look at me like I have just grown another head. Like, okay. Yeah.
Shit, I remember just coming back into reptiles, right? I go to my first big show, and I'm like walking around, and I cannot figure out for the life of me, why does it say 100% H and 50% H? Like, what does that mean? Like, what is that?
What the hell is that?
Yeah. I didn't know there was any genetics. I mean, I knew there was genetics in snakes, but I didn't know it was like morphs and stuff like that. I had no idea.
It gets crazy. Somebody asked me what percentage my Darwin babies were, or my albinos, and I'm like, and I sat down. I'm like, oh shit, they're 75%ers. Yeah, right, yeah. So I just keep labeling them as crosses.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should start labeling it that way so that it's not as confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could. I mean, the whole... Sorry, go.
It's being honest, right?
Yeah.
You're labeling it properly.
I put out everything that this is a cross albino. And if you want to know, like, the percentages, here they are. But I'm not saying that this is a caramel Darwin. It technically is, but it's a cross. So it's a...
But you don't even need to write say cross. You just say this is an albino carpet python.
Right.
Because there's some that are so far and have been so moved around that I couldn't even tell you what the cross is. So by just saying albino carpet python, I mean, it's a carpet python, which is anything, and it's albino.
I prefer to hit them over the head with what it is so that nobody can walk around and say that this is a pure... I don't want anybody to be confused that this is pure. Yeah, so I'm going to be obvious about it.
Have you ever run into, like, out of all of the... We've been doing this for 12 years.
Yes.
I think I can count on one hand, how many times I've seen somebody mislabel what they had, and they weren't a carpet python person.
I have seen it.
I have never met somebody that bought snakes and then went and represented them as something different than what they were.
I have seen it more. So I have sold HCQ animals and then came back to the same place a week later and seen it labeled as a jungle carpet.
Okay.
So...
How about you, Dominic? Have you seen that?
I was going to say the similar experience where you sell an animal and you're going to sell it as, 66% het this and that, and then all of a sudden it's either it has the gene or it's het, right? And I've seen it, and unfortunately people do it. It's,
yeah.
I mean,
that's why if I sell something wholesale, it's the bare bones stripped down. I don't even tell you it's a possible het. Yeah, like this is what it is.
The beauty of the wholesale is simply that you wash your hands of it, right?
Right.
So you tell them exactly what it is, and they get a great deal, and then they sell them as what they wish. Unfortunately, it might not be the best way for the market, but realistically, if you want a really high quality animal, you're not going to go buy it at the show. You're not going to go buy it, well, unless it's the breeder that's there and it's the breeder that you know. Well, if I want a really good animal, I'm going to go from just a few specific people if I want exactly that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think when it comes to carpets, well, I guess when any reptiles, but in my experience with carpets is, you want to make sure who you're getting it from. Like, I don't know, to your point, if you're going to a show and you're going to buy a diamond python. I remember I saw in Daytona one year when I went, they had these diamond pythons on the table, but they were $400. And it's like, oh man, I would buy them all right now. But like I did, and then you ask like,
that can't be true,
from a specific line or something like that. And they're just like, no, we don't know.
Diamond python.
I'm like, damn it. So
that should be your first red flag.
Yeah, exactly. The first red flag is that it's not from somebody that you kind of, no, I mean, and I've had it where people buy bredli maybe secondhand or third hand, and the person they bought it from says they got it from me, and the person who's coming to have me verify doesn't have a clutch code, doesn't have like a number for the baby identification, doesn't even have a year, maybe says it's like it's either this year or this year. I'm like, well, I produced bredli one of those years, so I can't in good faith tell you that that's one of mine.
Right.
I can't, and I'm sorry about that. And you know what? It very well could be one of mine, but I can't say for certainty. And what I would say in those instances is that if you really wanted one of my bredli, why you go into somebody else? Just call me. Like, I'll sell you bredli if I got one. But
it's cheaper. That's usually the case, right?
Usually is the case.
Because they talk to you, they ask you all the questions, and they go buy it $100 cheaper at the other guy that has no real history.
Well, but then that's the decision you made. You set these two things up, price and value of the animal, and you went with this. You can't have both. If you want that, you have to pay for it.
So let me push back a little bit on that, right? So they're going, and I've experienced this. I think we probably all have at some point. Somebody wants to get a snake from you, and you go and give them all this information, blah blah blah. Then they end up getting it from a jobber's table or something like that. It's only $100, right?
Right.
So, do you think that maybe we should have some of those crosses and stuff that like in particular, right? If you can make a coastal jungle, kind of look like a jungle type of thing, to where it has, it's pretty enough. It's a pretty snake, maybe the pattern's a little different than like the normal jungle you might see or whatever, but like give that for $100. That's somebody that's just looking to get a carpet python. They don't really want to get into they don't want to be a nerd carpet python person. They just like the look of the snake. They want to keep it as a pet. They put it in a cage. They take great care of it for all, it lives a long life, blah, 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 blah. But like, I'm just thinking of myself. Like, I've never thought about that until just a minute ago. Like, maybe I should have offered those things. I was like, no, I can't sell that.
I will sell cheaper carpet pythons at shows. I'm not putting a $100 carpet python online for sale. I'd rather pull my own teeth out with a pair of pliers.
Maybe that's it. It's a particular.
I would rather kill
customer. I'd
rather rip every single one hair at a time until I'm cleanly shaven. Like no,
that's going to be the customer that after he asks you the 100 questions and he gets approval from his wife and his car doesn't break down, actually buys it for $100. After that, even once you get there. For the next 2 years, he will send you a picture of it eating, or he'll send you many messages when it doesn't eat. You're going to do all that, and you can want to rip your head off.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know. No. That's been my experience. That's why maybe I'm a really, really bad salesman when it comes to snakes, because I have a few of those people, and they message me all the time, and it's like you're like the message there. I need to reply, but you're like, oh my god, him again.
Well,
and for $100.
Exactly. It's
that $100.
It's that whole thing where it's like I had somebody who wanted me to call them, who called me 4 times while I was at work. Wanted me to call them over a $200 carpet python. I got them on the phone. We talked it out. Then they said they were going to do this. They were going to do that. They said they were going to pay me. They couldn't pay me until Thursday. They called me again on Thursday. They wanted to talk it out. I talked it out with them. Thursday came and went. No payment. Saturday, they said they missed me. I'm like, it's a $200 carpet python. Like, either you want it or you don't want it. But like now I've spent almost a day dealing with this. Like, yeah.
Do any of those people ever come back?
No. The dude never bought the snake and then disappeared.
But then if you sell a $500 or $800 snake, you're probably going to have a conversation that's going to be like, hey, which line is that? Perfect. Do you have a mail available? Perfect. It's not going to, and then it's going to be, what's your deposit I can send right now? When can you ship? It's not.
Is it eating food? Yeah. All right. Done. Sold.
As you go a little bit higher in the money range, it's just so much simpler. It's a lot easier, and it actually makes it worthwhile, and they're easy people to deal with after, and they end up often being more friends than pins in the
right. Yeah. And I don't mind answering questions, and I don't mind talking to people. It's just when you're demanding my attention over something that small, I kind of am like, really? We can't just pay me and move on? Okay. So.
I see, this is why I don't sell snakes, right?
I know.
Because I know that I can't do that, right? I can't. I work too much. I just can't. I want to. I would like to. Like, if I'm going to sell snakes. See, to me, I don't know. I look at it as like either I'm going to sell snakes or I'm not going to sell snakes, right?
Right.
And I thought about the wholesale thing, which, I thought about just giving Owen all the babies, the wholesale to him, just like, here, take them all, give me whatever.
I don't need it anymore. Please don't do it.
Right. But I just know that I'm just not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to be on call like that. I'm not going to be able to just drop what I'm doing to answer your question or whatnot. And I just, it's not, I don't know.
I also think the higher price does negate the impulse buy of people who don't know what the hell they're doing with this snake, but had $100 in their pocket. Because I remember we went to a Tinley Park and I sold a $150 carpet python, and the dude called me when we were at a rest stop on our way home the next day and was like, I tried feeding this thing 4 times and it hasn't eaten. And I immediately regretted selling this animal to this person, because it's like, you're telling me that in the span of 12 hours, you tried to feed it 4 freaking times? leave it alone. Like, yeah. So
with no success.
Like,
2 hours later, I left it alone. It still isn't eating.
Geez. Well, normally what I'll say, because I've had people ask me this, I'm like, if
help me, Owen.
Leave it alone
You're
for a
my
week.
only hope.
Yeah, leave it alone for a week, and then try to feed it. If it doesn't eat after you've waited a whole week, then call me and we'll work it out. I never get the secondary calls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that can be frustrating.
Either they think I'm an asshole and they don't want to talk to me, or the thing eats. So, yeah.
Whew.
Sorry, that was a big rant.
I love it.
No, it's cool.
I love those.
All good.
It's a nice tangent.
Lots of good stuff there.
I like it.
So you didn't end up getting diamonds yet, did you?
I didn't, but I'm still inquiring. No, well, it's it's in the buying process. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I got to figure out how to ship it. So.
So what did you lean towards? Did you go?
I think I'm going to do it.
Line or
I'm going to buy either San Diego to London Zoo Casper line, which is 2 smuggled line with a line that everybody knows. Which again doesn't mean they're pure, but it does mean a completely different bloodlines than someone else. So for me, that's desirable, and there's none really on this side of the globe. There is some on the other side of the globe. So to me, it's just something interesting, and they're gorgeous, and they look like diamonds. So to me, I don't know if I would. I'm not going to put the word pure, but I also think nobody should put the word pure. So to me, it's just a different bloodline, and I find that very appealing because there's really not that many bloodlines out there.
Awesome.
That's a good way to look at it, because I often worry about, I've worried about this recently more than ever before, is the whole outcrossing thing. Because I think for a long time we sort of have maybe acted like it's not a big deal, that we're just inbreeding, and Australia is kind of closed to us.
Right.
In case, unless those compensated animals pop up every once in a while. But if you can get unrelated something, I think it's just worth everything you can, what I mean?
It is. Yeah.
Completely. That being said, I don't think inbreeding is that much of a big issue. And don't get me wrong, you shouldn't do it, but, and here's the big but, a lot of people have inbred the crap out of the snakes. The only time it really is a problem is when it's really specifically bred into certain genes, but only certain genes have caused issues. Many of the other ones have not. And Jags was a problem. There was a problem with the first one. They're in everything, right? But if you take granite, there was no problem with granite, and it's just been too inbred. But certain genes have been inbred like crazy. If you take zebra and jungles, I've known of people that have gone brother to sister, back to mother, and they've gone 3, 4, 5 generations in a row, and you don't see any issues whatsoever with the offsprings, except the super zebra. But the super zebra has
already had those problems.
Genital tail / too short of a tail. Even the perfect tails are too short. So I produced 6 super zebras this year, and 4 of them, to me, have a perfect tail, until I saw Nick's post saying that even the perfect tails aren't perfect. And then I actually started measuring the tails between the super zebra and the normal jungles. And, maybe I shouldn't. He doesn't listen anyway, right? So
he
was right. The super zebras definitely have a slightly shorter tail than all the other ones. So so then that gene has a problem. But I bet you we could probably breed a coastal to another coastal and probably do 4, 5, 6 generations in a row. And I'm willing to bet you have no issues with it. It's just my thought and observation.
I think you're right. I think that there's I see a lot of this is a lot of behind the scenes type of talk, right? A lot of cancer, a lot of
stomach cancer,
heart, enlarged heart issues. Is that coming from inbreeding too much? Is that coming from just that particular line? We always use the one line that I used to. Oh my God, they were beautiful coastal carpets. But the Sylvester line, all enlarged hearts. all the time. And a lot of the founding coastals that are in the U.S. probably have, that blood mixed into it. But maybe it's when you're inbreeding it that you have it. So, like, I'm thinking like this. I'm thinking like, do you take a gelatin and you breed it into a jungle to outcross your jungles?
I think
you could say if you're doing like an ivory thing. And that's,
You can and you could, but at that point, do not ever put the word gelatin in there or pure locality, because what's the point of using a locality if you've mixed it? Because at that point, you're not trying to do a jungle coastal, right? You're just it's jungle to jungle. Therefore, once you've removed the locality, even if it's 50-50, even if you bred it back to a gelatin, I wouldn't call that a 75% gelatin jungle. I mean, what is that?
The line's broken.
As soon as you move out of the locality has to disappear and never be talked again. But that's again, that's me. I don't think there should be any percentages, no matter how much you breed it back into it. But the example of the ivory is different though, because you're breeding for a color, so the percentage in that is important. Right. Because if you do an ivory to, let's say, a normal jungle that's a zebra, and then you produce a 50% ivory zebra, and then you breed it back to an ivory, and now you keep the zebras, and you get a 75% zebra ivory. The 75% is for the ivory, saying how much white blood. Again, that it's right. So to me, that one would matter, but not the gelatin, because you're not locality. You're talking about a polygenic trait that's bred out the yellow to bring in the white. I don't know if that.
I guess
it makes sense.
Yeah. I think the only thought that I would throw out there with that is I do agree with you. I would not call it a gelatin after that. I think if you look at a lot of Paul's stuff, right, he used a lot of like localities like Rockhamptons and stuff like that. But it's in the lineage chart that it would be on there, but it's not like he's saying that this is an exantic Rockhampton. He's just saying that
there's Rockhampton blood in
this locality, this line, or whatever however you want to look at it. But like all the carpets really are locality of some sort or another. They come from somewhere, right?
They do, but
it's just these ones in particular.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you don't know what it is.
Yeah, you don't know. That's true. But like, I'm just thinking, like, does it make sense to do that for the long term for them? I guess if you're not seeing any issues, that's one thing. And then you don't know if those issues are coming from care. You don't know if those issues are coming from what they're eating. You know what I mean? There's so many variables that could come into play.
I think it all depends on what genetics were in the initial animals. Because if you take, for example, rough-scale pythons, every single rough scale in captivity is from 4 or 5 snakes. And how many do we have out there? And they're all extremely, extremely inbred. And I don't know about you, I've never seen one issue or heard of an issue with a rough-scale python.
As far as like genetic problems or anything?
There's nothing at all. And they are inbred like you have no idea. But then you take the genes that have a problem, and I'll use granite because it's the best example, and that one caused a problem right away. Now, why did it cause a problem? Is it because of the mutation, or is it because the mutation also was carrying another, let's say, malignant mutation in there that caused the snakes to have no eyes or things like that, right? And then we bred that and simply propagated that. So I think they can take a certain amount. It's not like mammals, a much higher animal that once you inbreed an animal, I mean, you shouldn't even, you're going to have a lot of problems. A reptilian is a much, I don't know how to say this, but it's an animal a little bit lower on the I don't know, sophistication, or I don't know what word to use here, but you're going to have a lot less problems.
Inbreeding doesn't hurt it as much as it does like a mammal.
Thank you. And if you take a cockroach, you could probably do 1,000 generations without any issues, right? So I don't know. To me, inbreeding, yes, it's bad. Don't do it. But I don't think there's that many issues unless there's an issue in the line you're inbreeding.
Right. Then you have to stop. I mean, and from what I heard now, that they're even with outcrossed granites, they're starting to have issues with the eyes.
I have so many. Like, I have a good amount of granites. Some are outcrossed, and a lot of them are pure. And I've never, ever seen any issues with the granites. But I'll be honest, I've never bred a granite to a granite yet. ever because I've never needed to. So they've always been mixed with other lines, and I've never had an issue.
Yeah.
I think this year is going to be the first time I breed.
Are you making hets?
I'm usually
hets when you're doing granites, or
I'm usually making granites het exanthic or exanthics het granite to try to get eventually to the marble and I'm bringing in different animals to get there. So I've produced a good amount of granites. I've never seen an issue, but again, I've never bred a granite to granite yet. And even once I do, because there's been so much outside blood, I don't see an issue with breeding granites to granites as long as you've got your granites that have been continuously outcrossed.
Yeah, I think I didn't run into any issues with granites when I was doing like zebra granites, caramel granites, granite jags, well, except for the jag part of it, but like no kind of inbreeding type of issues or anything like that. No eyes, stuff like that. But I have had granites where they are kind of a little neuro a little bit, like their heads like that, like tilted a little bit, and they're just off a little. It's not like they're bad or anything. It's just like, something's not right here. So maybe the key is not breeding granite to granite.
I think it's the granites where they came from initially. As soon as you took even that granite that had some issues, you outcrossed it to just a wild-caught granite, then you have 50% different blood. If you took that one and you produce the hets go to something else, as soon as you move it out, you have no problem. Like when you're breeding with caramel and all those other genes, you're mixing in the coastal gene, you're mixing in the jungle gene, you're mixing the bloodlines so much that you lose all the issues. Yeah. Right? So, anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
But the second you start putting them back to each other, like it's still got to be in there somewhere. If the granite was the issue and you outcrossed it, like it doesn't go away. You're just diluting it.
But I don't think it's like the jag where the neuro is tied to the gene, my opinion. And again, it's my opinion. My opinion is that I don't think the granite is tied. The problem with the granite gene, I don't think is tied to the mutation. I think it's tied to inbreeding. And once it's outcrossed enough, you will be able to have perfect granites and eventually breed granite to granite without any issues. And I think we're there. Because you look at how many problem granites we have now, it's almost nothing compared to before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would agree with that. I would be curious to see how the granite to granite thing progresses. But yeah, for the most part, I agree with what you're saying. I think that's sort of like in the early days why I was really doing those crosses, because I was like, well, if there's an issue with this and there's an issue with that, and I breed them together and now I don't have any issues, that's really because I'm putting unrelated blood in there. And it's sort of why I sort of started to think that. How come when I breed these certain lines, I get issues? I don't think that the granites neuro thing has anything to do like the jag. It's not the jag thing to where every single one is going to have it. I think it's just, I think the one that I saw that with was one that Nick had just started out crossing. It was beautiful, but ultimately, it was just a little off, But anything else I produced granite wise, I haven't had no issues at all.
I haven't heard the Nero thing is one thing, but I've heard more of it's the eyes, where maybe necessarily some outcrossed ones, their eyes are smaller, but they're still having some of those eye issues that we've seen. Maybe they, like I said, the big thing is that they were born with no eyeballs. Now we're getting ones that are 90% outcrossed with small eyeballs. So it could still be linked in there with the gene. But again, if we're using the same granites that, we hatched out one clutch and they all had no eyeballs and we took those animals and then started outcrossing, it's still there.
It's kind of like the thing we always say, right? It's like you wonder how we're dealing with these morphs of all types, all reptiles. And like, as popular as these morphs are, you're surprised you don't see more problems.
Right. Right.
The only thing I was going to say that kind of fights the other side that it could be related to the gene is if you take the jag gene is the neuro is caused by, if I remember listening a couple, it's caused by a deficiency in the black pigmentation that causes the neuro, something like that. Anyway, I've heard it. I don't know if I'm right or not. But then if you look, the black pigmentation is also related to the formation of the eyes, is it not? So if maybe I'm wrong, but I remember hearing that the eye formation at one point is related to that as well. Am I wrong? Or
the JAG neurological thing, I think they just said that in spider they found it was an underdeveloped inner ear bone and problem with that caused them to kind of lose equilibrium. I'm not sure if that's with jaguar, but I think that's what they found in spider, according to that last thing we read. But I'm not 100% sure on pigment or what goes on with that.
You're right. It is true. The reduction of black is sort of like the reduction of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna. I'm with you.
I'm not sure
exactly how to say this in science. Yeah,
yeah.
But I think that is correct. It's it doesn't develop right.
Right. Something doesn't produce correctly. So I don't know, but it could all be connected.
I'm curious with the super zebras. Let's circle back to that, right? Because I don't see as many people working with them. Like, what's your end goal with them? Are you trying to produce them, or are they just something that you get from producing zebra stuff?
So I've been breeding carpets for over 20 years, and I've never seen a super zebra in my life, in real life. So that's the number one reason why I did it. I've simply never seen one, and nobody ever does them. And I was really curious. And I decided I'm going to try. And see what happens. And we can go into the whole jungle talk now. So I had five and one. I'm going to use 6 clutch as an example. 5 clutches are from me. 1 clutch is from a good buddy of mine, Shan Melanson, that has a pair of my baby ocelots, jungle zebras. So I'm counting into all this. But so I paired up, I think, 4 pairs of zebra to zebra. And after doing the 4 pairs of zebra to zebras, I've had, I think, only 7 in total super zebras. Okay. 1 was dead in egg, fully kinked. 1 came out alive with I'd say a 90-degree kink in its tail, the last little, I don't know, maybe half a centimeter long, or inches, a 1/16 of an inch from the tip of the tail, and a small kink in the back. And then all the other ones were visually perfect. No kinking, nothing at all. So to me, why do we not do it? There's definitely a problem. And I mean, I've seen a lot that were dead, rotten eggs that could have been, but it's hard to tell when they've died and you see no pigmentation on it. You're like, oh, it could have been, or it's just never got there, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I produced 5 out of 7 that, in my opinion, were perfect. So it's not too bad, but it took 4 clutches to produce 5 super zebras. And if you look at when you're talking about an incomplete dominant gene, the percentage doesn't work, because that should be a zebra to zebra. You should get a quarter super zebras in every clutch. I should have produced, I don't know, 20 easily. Yeah. So to me, I think in every clutch you get a lot less. There's definitely a problem with the gene. There's no question about it, because there would be way, way more out there.
I sort of moved away from that when I was trying to do the super zebra granite, and it just the albino super zebra always
never got there.
I never even got to past the eggs would just not make it. You know, you'd have the clutch, and then randomly just ones would pop off. To your point, I don't know if it was a super zebra, but I can just assume that, the zebras popped out fine. The zebra jacks popped out fine. But the super zebras did not.
Same thing. I've never had any issues with that, but the percentages don't make sense. And over 4 clutches, I'm telling you, I maybe have less than 5% were super zebra instead of 25%, I'd say, per clutch. So to me, it's weird. Again, they could all be the ones that died in the egg, and only a few of them survive. But I think there's a reason there's not many of them out there. Yeah. So again, there's problems with kinking. There's problems with tails. You've all heard of it. We've all seen it. Yeah. So now what else does it cause? And I mean, all the super zebras that I produce, all 5 of them are eating fine. They're all doing great. I have no issues whatsoever. They're behaving normally. And I've seen a lot of people with large super zebras and they have no issues, but you got to get them to come out of the egg alive.
So what's it like when you hatch out the snake that you've never saw
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I've had that happen a couple of times. Well, it's cool. You're like, oh, that's what it looks like. And it's done because a super zebra should have been done like, you could have had a super zebra, 15 years ago? How long has zebra been out there? I mean, it's just an incomplete dominant to an incomplete dominant.
Close. Yeah.
But yet there's none. There's none. I don't get it. There's only a few of them out there, so I don't get it.
People were, I know Balin had a few. I know there was a couple people that were really working with it, but I think a lot of people got turned off by the tail thing. And I don't think a lot of people wanted to put in the work that, a lot of people kind of jumped into jungle being black and yellow, bright, gorgeous, and that stuff. And the second the super zebras didn't come out completely neon yellow, everybody was like, oh, well, whatever. And they kind of backed off of it. So I don't know.
The one
there are a couple projects by the wayside.
I have a super caramel, super zebra, jungle coastal.
Yeah, I like it.
Which is fine. No problems, no issues. Beautiful snake. I just have it as a pet, I guess. It's never going to do anything for me, but it's cool. So what about you want to talk about the ocelot stuff that you're...
we can. Before we go to the ocelot, let's talk about the weird clutch that I got. I think that'll be a good...
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is one so I've had this one female, and she is massive. She was my son's snake when I first got it for him, so he loved feeding it. He had it in his room, and he would feed it a rat a week, and it got huge. She's downstairs. She's 8 feet long. She's about 7.5 pounds. She's a massive jungle. So she's popped out the last 3 or 4 clutches. She's popped out on the same day every year, between 38 and 42 eggs. Massive clutches. Anyway, so she's had 3 years in a row, and I'm like, enough. Like this is ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, the jungles are the easiest thing to sell. They always sell perfect. And my son's super happy because I promised it's his snake. I give him half the money, so he's always happy. Right. So I've had 0 shoot, but this year I was like, I'm giving her the year off, and I'm not. So she bred last year. And then, you separate them once they ovulate. So I'd have to look at the dates, but I had the exact date, and I write this all down. And I had the exact date where she ovulated. Then I separated the male. Then she waited she shed, let's say, a little while after. And then after that, 28 days after, something like that, she laid eggs. Great. Eggs hatched. Awesome. Never seen a boy the entire year. Went through the same cycle. And then breeding season this year comes again. And I simply left her alone. You are not breeding. You're not doing anything like that. So here's the bizarre thing. She's always the first one to lay. But she didn't this year. She never ovulated. Nothing happened. 3.5, 4 months later, at the time where you would be having, let's say, Bredli eggs, she laid. She was never, ever with the male I calculated the last time she was with the male and the day that she laid her second clutch. So we could call it double clutching technically, because that's really what it is. She double clutched. Her second clutch was 14 months later, but she still laid them. And she had, I think, about 36 eggs, 4 white ones, and the rest were just slugs. Okay, so obviously terrible. And I was really pissed off because I was trying to get her the year off. And I'm like, I should have just put a boy in there. But anyway, that was part of the 11 clutch, and she wasn't supposed to be in there. But so I incubated the 4 eggs because at this point I was really curious. So she's just a beautiful jungle. So nothing in her, right? So if all the babies come out jungle, my thought is, well, is it Partho or is it return sperm from the year before? Right? So it could be both. But the only snake she's ever been bred with has always been a zebra male. So if one of the babies comes out as a zebra, I can guarantee you it's retained sperm, right?
Right.
Because it's impossible for her to have a zebra without the male because she's just a jungle. Even if it was Partho, she'd be double jungle. She wouldn't be, if it was a zebra and then she came out super zebra, you could be like, okay, that's a Partho. But in this case, so only 2 eggs made it to the last day. 2 of them rotted about a week and a half before the end. The two of them that rotted, I cut open. First one was a regular jungle, you could tell. The second one was an ocelot zebra. So now I'm looking at that. So the dead one was zebra. And I know the ocelot comes from that male. That's the original one that pushes the ocelot and everything. So now she had a zebra. So that egg was dead, but it was still zebra. So it died a week before. So the point is that this told me that it was retained sperm, because there's no other way that I can think of. So that would mean that that snake retained sperm from the last time it was with the male was exactly 16 months. I have the dates. I'd have to look. But I talked to a few people, including Nit Mutton, and he just says, he's like, it's only been documented about 3 months of retained sperm. So to me, it was, I don't know, I think it's pretty cool.
That's huge.
That is awesome.
Huge. So I don't know. I think it's just really interesting. I mean, the snake was dead. The two, and just by the way, the two last snakes that did make it all the way to the end, one I opened up was dead in the egg, perfectly formed, just a regular jungle. The other one pipped his head, was looking out, just waited, came back the next day, head was not pipping out, opened it up, it strangled itself on the umbilical cord. And so I actually got nothing. So nothing lived out of that clutch. But really, in the end, it doesn't really matter, because I was more curious about whether a snake could retain sperm for that long, or I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. So
yeah.
I just thought it was. Go ahead.
I mean, I've heard that Partho babies can have issues and they're kind of weak and all that other stuff, but I never heard anything about retained sperm babies being weaker or anything like that. But again, if there's not that many instances, I don't know. That's just is really interesting and then really weird too, because she waited so long.
Yeah, she was the last one. She laid 3 months later than her usual. And I don't know if you ever track the date that a snake lays. I've noticed that every time a snake lays, let's say, I don't know, May 1st or whichever day she lays, she will lay to a day before, a day later, the next year. Almost all are identical. Just like if you have a girl that has a pre-lay shed that is 34 days and she's the one who stressed you out because she wouldn't goddamn lay. The next year, she'll take 34 days. The next year
she'll lay it.
And it becomes her normal. And that's how I'm like, no, don't worry about it. I'm not expecting eggs from her for another week and a half. And then if you've got the one that lays at 18 days, you know that. But the date that they lay is the same every year. She laid 3.5 months later than her usual after having the exact off to 1 day for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I had a caramel that would lay end of March, beginning of April, and it's like, you shouldn't be this early, you psychopath. So it's like, but every year she'd be the first one to lay eggs. So
I've noticed that too, that they lay within a day, or the day before, the day after, or the day of. Like, I've noticed that as well. The cool. Interesting thing is that they don't necessarily lock up at the same time, which is odd to me, right?
Right.
Like, if you look at like when they were together and when those locks would happen, that female may have locked at different times depending on the male, but yet she still lays on the same day.
I mean, if you don't change the parameters, her body's going to go through all those motions at the same time or have those same triggers. But maybe she just, that he got it done on the first shot, or maybe gets it done on the fifth shot.
Isn't that why, like, if you're, again, I don't know this 100%, but I've always thought that, like, when you're breeding a lot of ball pythons, right, you sort of don't want the male to be in too early. Whereas, like, I think, at least from the carpet python world, we sort of just, oh, here we are. It's winter time. Okay, you're just going together and you stay together for the next 4 or 5 months.
Have you ever gotten locks when you do the first introductions in wintertime?
Yeah,
and then like it happens all the damn time in bredli. With my bredli, they'll lock up in the winter, and when I put them together, and I'm like, this is meaningless, and because if you backtrace the eggs, it's like none of these locks mattered. And then they kind of ignore each other for a couple months, and then they're back to locking up. So maybe the locks in the beginning of the season do matter, because maybe that triggers ovulation. Maybe she can, now she can retain the sperm.
Well, I think that does happen in short tails.
Short
the
tails.
male triggers the ovulation.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Dominic.
No, I was just going to say, I think it does matter because maybe that first lock is where the sperm came from, and that's the one that worked. It just means that she might have just held it for that long, especially if you're talking about just 2-3 months later. That's really not a lot, right?
Right.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah. I wouldn't change. Like, to me personally, when I'm breeding carpets, I just put them together. I don't, I don't.
In a burlap bag, you can just shake it.
I write down when they lock or whatever, but obviously there's probably times where if they're together for that length of time, then there's probably times where they're locked and maybe I don't see it.
You never
How many
separate?
times have you?
Not really. No, I never separate.
I do for feeding, but how many times have you gotten eggs and never seen locks?
Yeah.
All the damn time.
Rare. Only the pygmies are the only ones that I've never seen hook up, and I've gotten eggs 2 years in a row, and I've never seen it. But except for that, carpets, I almost always see it.
I have sneaky males then, because I have a couple males that don't give a damn if I watch, which is weird. But then the other ones, there have been a couple where I never saw a single lock, and then all of a sudden she's blown up like a balloon, and he's on the other side of the cage. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I maybe it's just because I'm just watching it too much. I don't know. I do kind of just put them together and let it go. Now, I guess let me take that back. When I was doing, I had an albino jag, and I was breeding it to a caramel albino and a zebra albino. So I do separate for a little bit of time in between the two, but for the most part, most of my pairings are just a pair, and I'm just putting that pair together.
I've stopped jumping males because I had one year where I thought the male had gotten the female, and I pulled him and put him with another girl, and then I thought he got that girl, so I pulled him, and it turns out I pulled them both too early, and I got no eggs, and I'm like, well, shit. So now lock him in.
So here's a crazy question with that. What happens if the year before you bred a cross of some sort, and then the next year you breed in pure?
So that could cause an issue for sure. Yeah.
Are you worried about
It could,
yeah.
It's technically possible.
I mean, yeah,
it could. But
if you're,
I mean, you would know if you're breeding for. I guess
you would have to make sure. Right, you would have to make sure that. Yeah, I guess I just say that and just to be careful with that, because,
I mean, like if I was breeding for something, I mean, it would be obvious, right? Because then the babies would come out and be like, "There's a zebra here. You're not supposed to be here." Like, I think that would kind of throw a wrench in the entire clutch.
But it's the whole weird thing about lineage, right? It's kind of like if you like just doing this pair and it has to be these two. Do you even know that that's? Let's just say that you're doing jungles and you're not going to know whether it pops out. Do you know 100% that it's not retained sperm if you're doing a female, say,
so
3 years in a row?
Well, like, all right, well, like, so I bought a pair from a guy, a pair of adult jungles, and I breed them, and they're just normal jungles, and then out of the egg pops up a zebra. I have questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, did you breed a zebra the year
jaguar?
Before?
Let's say a jaguar pops out. Now I have even more questions, because now is everything here that looks like a normal could have some coastal blood in it, but didn't hit the jaguar.
But how many clutches do you ever hear of that happening? Almost never, right? So that tells me that usually probably carpets shouldn't retain sperm for a whole year. It probably doesn't happen because we would have heard about it from a lot of people or things like that. That's why I think this is probably a very big anomaly. And I'm assuming it's retained sperm because I see no other possible way of. And I guarantee you that my cages are okay. They're not. They do have the pipes to connect from one cage to the other, but the snake underneath is not a jungle.
It could not have stuck in. All right. Yeah.
It's not unscrewing the cap.
Right.
Going up and coming back.
If he did, we have other things that we need to talk about, and we have other concerns. But I would say that it has to be kind of an anomaly because I think every time somebody hatches something that is not correct or is weird, they're all over the internet, and everybody has their opinion. So I think, like what Dom said, we would totally have seen more of those things.
Yeah. And going back on the switching males, going back on the males, I personally pull my males out as soon as they show no more interest. So I'll leave them in. If it's 2 days, if it's 2 weeks that they keep showing interest or cuddling and all that, as soon as they separate, they sleep in different spots all the time. I separate them for 2-3 days, then I put them back in and continuously redo that. And if I have a male to multiple girls, what I'll do is I personally prefer putting the 2 girls with the male, because I'll notice that for a week he'll only be breeding one, and then the next week he'll be breeding the other. It all depends on which one is receptive at that moment, because he will not touch a certain girl for a certain amount of time, then he'll auto summon, have no more interest in her. It's like if he knows which one to go for. And I've noticed that I have much better success, and I've put males to like 4 females. And I've done, I did 1 male to 4 jungles, and we can get into the breedings that I did. 1 male to 4 jungles, he got all 4 of them pregnant. And I did it that he was going from one cage to the other, and there was 2 females in one cage, 2 females in the other. And he was literally spending 3 days in one cage, 3 days in the other. And I've had no issue. All the fertility was all perfect. I've had no slugs, well, maybe 1 slug, but almost nothing. But he would only breed the one specific one at a time and would almost ignore the other all the time. Like I would never see him one morning bred locked up to this one, the next morning locked up to that one. It would be almost always this one, then the other one. You know, I don't know. It's just my observation.
Interesting.
But that's the way I've done it. And I've had
interesting
for multiple females. That's what's worked for me. So.
Yeah. I never even thought about doing it that way.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm probably going to do my diamond pythons like that, where I keep all 4 together.
Yeah.
Just all the time.
You can't miss it that way, right?
Yeah. Somebody's breeding.
Like, somebody's going to do something. Yeah.
If the girls,
I find that fascinating, though, that male is able to pick up on that female. You know,
I mean,
like, you're ready, and then, you know, be able to, you know, switch to the next one.
I mean, we had that with like Chuck had that with his Halmaheras, where like the male was like up against the door, so that let me in, like open the door so that I can get into the girl. So I think they would pick up on that kind of stuff.
That's what I was about to say. Like you always see those pacing males. So I think we lost Eric. You always see those pacing males that that can pick up on that. So when you see that male going up and down the cage, rubbing the walls, and I mean, like the snakes don't rub. I don't know, mine don't. And all of a sudden when they're doing that, I know I need to put them with the girl.
Yeah, I mean, and they'll figure that out. I was only going to try for 1 clutch of roughies this year, and I put the male got the female, like the big female, 100%, and I put him back in his cage, and he would not stop. He would not stop pacing. He would not stop ripping around. He ignored food, and I'm like, all right. And I chucked him in with the other female, and they were locked within 5 minutes. So sometimes it just comes down to watching your boys and figuring out exactly what works out best for that, or like what they kind of want almost.
Just by curiosity, how's the feeding trials going for your roughies?
7 out of 7.
Really?
Yep.
I've heard that they were really, really hard. Like
I was terrified, and of course I'm knocking on wood because I got 10 more that are gonna hatch in like a week. So I may be like, I'm doing well, and then just get like hit with a chair from behind. So, but yeah, I have one that is on button quail. That one. So, but that one was kind of reluctant to feed, and then I just kind of showed it to quail, and it's like the baby went from like not giving a damn all over the place to like locked in like 5 seconds, slow tongue flicks, and then it was on it. So it's now had everybody in all 7 babies have now at least had 2 meals. There are a couple that have had 3, but yeah, they're rocking and rolling.
Oh, that's pretty. Are you breeding them just like you would breed carpets, like same type of regiment? Yeah.
Yep. Same thing. They get a night drop year round. It just is not as harsh in the wintertime because they usually goes from like 84, 85 hot spots to like 80. You're goddamn right, I do. To like 80, and then at night, and then in wintertime, it kind of drops to close to 70. and then introductions, and it did not take much.
So you do it the exact same way. So really, technically, rough scale pythons is a mirror. It shouldn't be any harder than a carpet to breed, or is that wrong to say? Yeah,
I didn't find any. I didn't find any really hard issues. It wasn't like
I think it wasn't like a white lip. Is getting them eaten, right?
Right. I think the hardest part is babies, which if you have enough bullets in the gun, you get through it. Because like I have 3 of these guys are eating. I'm sorry, 2 of these guys are eating live. 1 is eating frozen thawed. Two of the other ones, or 3 of the other ones are eating ones with chick down, and then 1's eating button quail. So it's like you kind of got to find what you take, what do you eat, what's going on, and then now that everybody's feeding, you just keep feeding them, and then as they grow, you start messing with it. Like I had a really, really small litter of mice 2 weeks ago. I only had 2 babies, so that's how I got the one to eat frozen thawed. Is I didn't have any live to give him, and I'm like, well, take a shot, and he did it. So now no more live for him. It's just frozen thawed.
Yeah, I find the whole the recipe for breeding carpet pythons seems to work for so many things. Like this year was my first year breeding spotted pythons. They were identical as carpets. This year and last year I did Anthil's python. I did them the same way as carpets, no problem. Last year I did Angolan pythons, and I did them the exact same way. They were in my room. They all go down identical, and I bred Angolans identical as a carpet python, and I got them to go as well. So I feel like it's probably a recipe that works for the majority of pythons. Maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, there's some that aren't, but anything that is somewhat related, and you take an Angolan python, which is not from anywhere close, but it seems to be a similar environment to a certain degree, and it seems to work. I don't know. I just find it interesting because I didn't change a thing for spotteds, for pygmies, for carpets, for Angolans, and they all went no problem.
I found the same thing, and then I had to change things up for breadlie, and then I had to, but breadlie got me olive pythons and white lips. So the same kind of treatment got those.
But the breadlie would be like the winter spring breeder. Then you could take the spring breeder recipe and put tons of animals through that. Like you could do your inlands, you could do your diamonds, you could do your breadlie, I'm sure you could find other species that would be slightly colder pythons. Like it makes you wonder, like probably bolins, but bolins aren't even like deeper, but they, like, you never know. But I feel like there's certain recipes that we found that seem to really work for a lot. And the carpet python method seems to work for a lot more than just carpets.
I have full intentions of.
Yes,
I've been trying water python at the carpet python method. I think this year I'm going to be very mean to my water pythons and kick them out with the breadlie method and see what happens. So
I think the Indo stuff is probably the Indo stuff needs similar.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the scrub complex, they seem to need that other male. Like another male involved in the whole situation. I think if you probably did bolins that way, you would probably be successful. The problem with that is when they're $10,000 a piece, you
can't really mess around with it. Yeah,
you don't want to find your males.
I keep hearing that Timor pythons need, like, you need to feed the female to the point where she like almost throws up or does throw up, like, and they need that massive intake of food before breeding season is what I've heard.
And I guess that would make sense, right? They're on an island.
This is the only time that the food source is here
of food at a certain time of year. Blah blah blah.
And it's gone.
Yeah, but it's again. That's
cool. Still, I'm going to try spotted stew. So
I'm going to try. Did nothing different, but like it's all part of the same recipe. Like right now, I'm going through my freezer. I think I've emptied it twice in the past month. I'm feeding like crazy. Like I've been really sparse, and now I'm just like packing it on because, in about a month and a half, you're done. Yeah. They're not eating for 5-6 months, right? So it's, but that is still the same recipe. If you're doing that even with your team, where it's the same idea, we pack the crap out of them right before breeding, make them think that food is plentiful. It's a good time to reproduce and blah, blah, blah. Like I feel like it's all the same recipe to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. It's just that, like, this year I say I'm going to take it easy this year, but I did I did put in all the clutches that I was going to do, and it's still like 22 clutches.
God, dude, what are you doing?
It's most of it's colubrid. It's like there are 2 carpets. There are like 2 carpets. All right, everything else is colubrid. But shut up. Anyway,
he's a glutton for punishment, man.
Shut up.
Right.
I'm not happy about it either. So but I keep having to calm it down because they're eating and I'm feeding, and it's like, well, I got all year to feed you guys. I don't have to put weight on you guys this bad. So you kind of got to take a couple steps back.
Yeah. My rule is, do I have
Dom,
babies left from the year before? Sorry.
Yes.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say my rule is if I have babies left from the prior year, I'm not breeding that again.
I agree.
Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I keep trying to tell this guy over here. But
I don't do back to backs. It's the that's the problem is I have enough shit that I can do other things. Like I got other pairings I could try, so I don't do back to back. But
I was going to ask, I'm curious, right, with your breeding regime that you're doing and your approach, what do you think is the most important part of the whole thing?
Temperature. I think it's everything.
Temperature?
Yeah. So I think it's the number one, and it's everything, right? There's 4 or 5 huge triggers, but temperature is the number one. I always go down to about 64, 62 if I can, and I find that like everything goes. And my experience is the people that go down to 70, 68, not everything goes. And like that's the difference between having 11 out of your 12 pairs go than 4 out of 12 pairs go. And a lot of people say some go, some don't. I think if you go down low enough, you're going to hit it. You don't need to. And a lot of people are scared to go a little too low with carpets because they're so prone to RI, or if you have anything bad in your collection, that's going to bring it out, right? But I think that's the number one. The number 2, I would say, is probably like feeding the crap out of them the last month before. That probably really helps. And I think light has a lot of things to do with it. The day cycles, I think the light cycle is another huge trigger. It's when you compare like the day of a 12-hour days, like, you know, in the summer, the sun comes up at 7 and goes down at 9, 10. Compared to winter, it's up at 7 and it's down at 5, 4:30 sometimes even. And then, so I've always been a big fan of the ergonomic timers or whatever, the ones that follow the regular cycle of the day. So you just plug it in, you say, I'm in this part of the earth, and it's going to slowly shorten the day by 1.5 minutes every day until it gets to winter, and then it goes back up. So I've always done all my lighting in the entire cage for the past forever on those. And I think it really does make a difference. I think light, food, what else? Temperature. I'm trying to think of what else would make a big difference there.
Temperature.
Yeah.
Do you notice any, I'm curious, lockups when you have storms come through or anything like
huge.
that?
It's everything. It's everything.
Yep.
So, and it's not necessarily when the storm is there. It could be the 12 hours before the storm. So, because if you start checking barometric pressure, barometric pressure, there you go. It seems to change before, like you see a huge shift in it, and usually that's what it is. So whether it's rain or whether it's snow, it makes, I think it's huge. And that's got to be, I mean, I don't get why. I have no idea why, but it does make a difference.
Right.
So that one,
I guess that maybe I don't. We could sit here and speculate that like it makes them feel safer. I mean, there's a reason. When my wife was working with horses in college, if there was a storm coming, they knew all the foals were going to be on the ground by morning because that's just how it would work. So I don't know if it's just animals feel safer when there's cover or a storm or whatever. So
I guess that does make sense, right? You're not. They're not. Are probably not really going to be out per se when it's raining like that, you know.
Or when it's raining, it's covering the smells.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's true too. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know how to
cosmic octopus. You know, it's just we don't understand it. We just try to replicate it as best we can. So did we? Do you want to hit on the ocelot stuff?
For sure.
So closing it out as we come up in the end. Yeah,
sure. So ocelot is a gene that's not the same to me as what's in coastal. So when I talk about ocelot, it has nothing to do with the coastals. I would say to me what an ocelot is instead of being a zebra, it's an extremely busy zebra instead of just a normal zebra. And I think in Australia they call them freaky zebras. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Like the zebra is considerably busier than a normal zebra. And then the second thing is it's got a bullseye almost everywhere. So you always have circles, dot in the middle, circles, dot in the middle, everywhere throughout the whole snakes. But it's busy patterned everywhere. You've got little crosses and a lot of broken fragments, but you've got these round circles with dots in the middle everywhere. So that's what in my opinion, looks like an ocelot. I don't know who coined that term. I've just seen it pop up in a couple of collections. There's a couple of guys in Europe that have them, and I've seen them, but basically I had maybe 4 or 5 pop out of one clutch. And I mean, if I counted the circles, like the full circle with a bullseye down the middle, you'd have 50% of the snake that was like that. So it's very prominent. Cool. So my big thing was, what is this? Why is it popping up? And where did it come from? So I raised up a lot of the babies and I did a lot of inbreeding in order to see what caused back. So I wanted to breed back to the father. I wanted to breed a daughter back to the mother. And I wanted to breed brothers and sisters together, right? To see what would happen. So ocelot to ocelot, there's no such thing as a super of any kind because it makes nothing like that. So that was just, I was curious and I couldn't get anything that was any different than that. That being said, every single zebra that came out of an ocelot to ocelot were all ocelots. Okay. So there was no normal whatsoever. And you can, just a zebra to an ocelot zebra, I mean, it's very distinguishable. There's just a regular zebra pattern, like any weird pattern you want to call is a zebra pattern, but there's no circles with dots in the middle, circle dots. So when you would breed ocelot to ocelot, and I've done a total of 3 pairs, and I mean, each pair had, I think the lowest, one had 9, one had 20, another one had 18. And one of those clutches is the one that Shan Melanson did. So, but they're from the original baby from me. And every single ocelot produced, all the zebras had ocelot zebras only. There was no normal zebras. And then the second thing is, then my next question was, what about the normal jungles? And if I look at the normal jungles, I sold them all as jungles and as normal jungles. That being said, they are not normal. They don't look normal. And there's the pattern on the sides, instead of having the perfect bands everywhere on the side like a jungle normally has, their bands are often washed out or broken up, and some of them have circles on the side. Multiple circles, but there's no circle with the circle on it, just the dot in the middle, if that makes sense. So a lot of the jungles are coming out with very bizarre, weird pattern that are not, I don't know, I can send them to you if you want on Messenger, just to kind of give you an idea.
Sure. Sure.
But that was the one thing I've noticed, is that when you do ocelot to ocelot, you're getting a lot of those very, very bizarre patterned animals, which was interesting. But I'll be honest, I didn't hold any of them back, purely because I have too many holdbacks, and I don't feel like experimenting to see if there's anything special going on there. I know that I probably could, but give me a second. I'm just gonna, because I can't do 3 things at once, I'm gonna just forward it to you right away, Eric. There you go. Okay, so you can take a look at it when you get a chance. So if you look at the pattern on the side, you really see that they're dots, and the side is faded out. And that's just a normal jungle, but it just doesn't look like, all the other ones are perfectly banded, is the best way I can say it. Then I did the pairing back to the father. If you did an ocelot back to the father, I had multiple ocelot zebra, but I had a lot of normal zebras, which was interesting. So now that was the first time I could produce normal zebras without it, but only once I didn't do ocelot to ocelot, and I tried ocelot to the mother, and the same results as well. So if I bred an ocelot to a normal, I had both. I had ocelots and I had normal zebras. So I don't know. To me, if a gene is reproducible, it is, but it doesn't really follow a incomplete dominant gene, because to me an incomplete dominant gene would have a super form, which it doesn't seem to have, unless we don't really notice it. Like if you take super caramel and caramel, it's just accentuated form, but I don't see the accentuation. And it doesn't seem to be breeding like a recessive. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but I did a total of 6 pairings, and I mean, I don't really know how else. Oh, and wait, and I did one pairing, which was an ocelot zebra to a line that was a German jungle, pure German jungle that has nothing related to anything of my entire stock. So just a German, and I bred her to see, and I got, again, half zebras and about half ocelots in that pair, which was really bizarre. So I don't know what it means. I just think they're really cool. It's kind of like I don't think it's the same as the freaky zebra in Oz, but their zebras are extremely patterned, and these ones are extremely heavily patterned.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of back in the day, there was some jungles that were the opposite, where it's like you sort of have these white centers inside the circle, if you will. Not white, but like the base pattern, the base color is inside the circle, where it was the same type of thing, but the circle inside the ring was black. Mm-hmm. You remember those, Owen?
Yeah, I do. I those are some of my favorite. Them and the 50/50s were some of my favorites, because it was just kind of, I always liked the jungles that had more black.
Oh, look at that zebra. Good gravy.
So, okay, if you want to share it, go for it. I don't have Owen's messenger there, but so those are examples of zebras, right? So those are ocelots. Do you see what I mean by the round pattern with the dots, right? Yeah. And those are, did you could see him, Owen, or did he share them?
Yeah, I actually, yeah.
So they're gorgeous, like gorgeous pairs, right? And it's very obvious to tell when they're ocelots. To me, it's just, they don't look like anything like a normal zebra. Right. So I don't know. And see, the nicest pairs that I've bred that did super zebras, there are silver super zebras, and the uglier pairs produce these brown super zebras, which is just another interesting fact, which I don't know why, but
you know what's kind of crazy? It kind of looks like the neck on that one zebra, that the one that's yellower.
Yeah.
It almost looks like a stonewash pattern.
Almost, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that head stamp. It's like,
I mean, it's nuts.
It's like the ribbon for breast cancer, kind of like outlined with yellow. It's wild, man. That's crazy.
But
wow. And you didn't keep these back?
Oh yeah, no, those are one of the main breeding pairs. So those are breeding. Well, you can see them; they're locked up in there.
Where they came from. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So no, those are one of the breeding pairs that I did, and just to give you an idea, like they're freaking gorgeous looking. But when you look at it and you look at the zebra pattern, it's unmistakable. The round circle with dots. So I don't know how else to call it, what to produce it, but it's reproduceable. Now, would you call it polygenic? Would you call it? I don't know, but I can tell you that if I breed an ocelot-looking zebra to an ocelot-looking zebra, I get 100% ocelot-looking zebra. But if you bred a tiger to a tiger, you'll get all tigers, right?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, it's probably a polygenic type of situation. Wow, man, it just shows me how much refinement you could do with the zebra. I mean, I know this has this ocelot thing going on with it, but like, man, the potential to sort of mess around with zebras with patterns. You could go darker, you could go more yellow, you could do thinner patterns.
Well, the ocelots, I think, kind of like add part to it, where it's like it kind of adds a different aspect.
To go.
Right, it adds a different aspect instead of just these lightning bolts coming down the snake. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild, man.
I don't know. I thought it was just really cool. I went pretty heavy on jungles this year purely because I wanted to know what it was or where it was going.
Right.
And, I mean, my goal is then to put more German bloodline in there because the German bloodline of jungles is incredible. Like that, the yellow is so deep and so beautiful. Like the babies so that female was bred to a German jungle, that really bright yellow one. And it's incredible. Yeah. Their babies are just incredible. And I kept back the ocelot zebras of that. So, and I'd say out of all the carpets in Canada, jungles, I can never hold on to any of them. And I produced probably about 60 jungles or so this year. And they were all gone pretty much instantly. As soon as I wanted them gone, everybody wants them. It's such an easy sell, right? And everybody wants the bright and yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the contrast is just insane, you know? So it's like, to your point, it's such an easy thing. The only thing that's not easy is to sell them when they're babies at a show. You know, that's not easy.
Yeah,
nobody's going to believe that they're going to turn into a yellow and black.
Unless you bring the adults and are okay with all day, every day being asked if you'll sell the adults. Yeah.
That's true, right?
Not me.
I'll give you $300 for the adults. Yeah.
Bite me. Yeah. Like I've done that where people, I bring a female bredli, my big adult female, and people are like, how much for her? I'm like, weird. It says not for sale. Like it's right there. She's not for sale. Well, the babies are.
How do you price an adult breeder female, right? You can look at a snake, you buy it for $400. When you have an adult breeding female that'll pop out, let's say even a tiny clutch of 12, 15 eggs, those small little clutches, man, do you know how many $400 or $500 that snake can make you every year? I mean, like how much is an adult breeding female in her prime at 4 or 5 years old that can breed for another 10 years easily? I don't know. I feel like there is no price on a female like that. And there's a reason
Priceless.
why. Yeah, right. Yeah. It can make you a few $1,000 easily every year.
But isn't that hilarious that like right now is always when you start seeing the want ads that I want like an adult female ready to breed or proven breeder, and I have $200. So I'm like, well, you aren't getting it. And like, I don't know where you're going to find it, or it's not going to be good.
Oh, wait. I've gotten them all ready for you. Here, have it.
Yeah. Oh, please take her. I don't.
I've been raising them up slowly.
Thank God you said so. I've just been waiting for you to come take this female that I took 4 years to raise. Yeah, no.
Jesus. People.
I send more animals because I've gotten to the point now where there's several animals that I don't necessarily need, and I just keep sending them on breed loan with people because. Again, I don't know what the price is for them, and I almost want to keep them semi-close in case I ever do need them, or they produce something awesome. Go get it.
Yeah. So, as we're slowly, do you kind of have an idea of what you want to do this season? What's your most anticipated pairing? What do you want to do?
Most anticipated pairings. Let's see. Definitely coastals. Coastals is the one thing I really love, and I had the hardest time finding tigers. I finally got that one tiger, so I produced some tigers this year. But this year I'll be putting again my Xanthic Super Caramel. That's the male, and he's going to breed again the Tiger Caramel, and I'm also going to put him to my Tiger Caramel Hypo. So it's the first time I'll breed hypo, which I think will be a disaster because I'll not be able to figure out what has hypo in it because everything, half of the clutch is going to be caramel, half of the clutch is going to be super caramel.
Right.
How do you know the half that's got hypo? I have no idea. I think it's going to be a disaster, but I am looking for, I think the brightest of the brightest will be super caramel hypos. That's my opinion. So I have that only because the hypo gene, in my opinion, is one of the nicest genes out there. So I've been wanting to do it. Except for that, breeding pygmies again, breeding spotteds again. I think I'm going to do Angolans again this year, or it's going to be my buddy Shan, which we always move him from a year or two, one place to the other. Except for that, I'm going to definitely do snows. So the male that was too small last year is very, very big this year at 3. He's 3.5 now, so there's really no reason for him not to perform, and he's got 2 girls. So I really would love to produce a snow. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's really wild. I think I can try for the first time for albino granites. Not albino granites, sorry, for exanthic granites.
Cool.
Okay.
That's I'm not that excited because I've been trying for that for about 9 years. And the only reason it took this long, the only reason it took this long was because my double het was never double het. So it was only het exanthic, so it really slowed down the process. And that I'm 9 years later, and I've got like the gene and the head of the other one now ready in both sides. So, but 9 years later, I just want to see the goddamn
just do it, yeah.
And then I'm probably going to say perfect, and then sell everything. But
yep.
So that I don't know. It's kind of like every year it's a little bit better, right? So I don't know. Like you hold back the nicer. I keep a lot of the pure stuff, like the coastals. Everything is pure in there. The coastals and the jungles are the two things. I'll breed again a lot of jungles, but I don't think there's anything. I'm trying to think. I'd love to breed inlands. Inlands is like the one. My rough scalp pythons are not yet ready yet. They're 3 and 2 years old. 3 years old for the females, so she's probably a good 5 feet. But I don't think I would pair her yet. What do you think? 4 years, 5?
4 years. 4 years is fine for them. And you know what? If there's no harm in delaying it, because then you'll just get a bigger clutch and she'll be healthier for it. So 4, I think, is the minimum. If you were a male, I'd say chuck her. If you were a male, do it. Yeah, he's fine. But for a girl, 4.
4. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. I got. I'm redoing all their cages downstairs. Like right now, like I'm putting rock crevices in and all this other stuff. It's going to be. I'm really happy, and then of course I have my army here that will slowly expand. 2 of them have to go to Eric, but it'll be all right.
They don't have to. But.
Yes, they do. Get them out. Yes, they do. I finally am able to like even the scales a little bit.
Yeah,
It's kind of nice having that one person that you bounce all your snakes off of, or that you get their stuff, they get yours, and etc. And it's.
Well, I mean, in the next, what is it? Not next year. Year after, I should be able to try Angolans because I have Eric's female, and then my male is just like slowly trying. He's trying to play catch up. His Angolan just exploded, and then Timor's and other stuff like that. So and then I think hopefully in the next year or 2, I'll be able to get Eric's ring python that he gave me off the bench too. So yeah, he keeps sending me stuff.
The one thing that surprised me about Angolans is when they hatch out, it's insane how huge they are. Like, it's such a big snake. Like, it could literally eat an adult mice coming out of the egg. Like, it's
really?
Yeah.
It's like olive python size. Like, they're just big babies.
It really surprised me. Like, the eggs are gigantic. It's
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
I guess that's they're closely related to African rocks, right? So I guess
I'm looking forward to it. I think they're gonna be fun to.
They're cool snakes.
To go. Yeah,
they're cool snakes. I like them a lot.
You can easily count the eggs in the females when they're big and grab it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Next year I'm kind of looking forward to because we're gonna spend. It's gonna be a lot of white lips and other non-Morelia stuff, and then the year following it's going to be back to Morelia stuff, but then a bunch of other things is then old enough to breed, so it'll be fun the next couple of years.
Cool.
Yeah, if I can pass the suggestions for a future show for you guys, you should bring somebody that really loves and really wants to deep dive into pygmy pythons. I'd love to hear all about it because you know what, there's almost no information on it, and I am going absolutely nuts trying to feed those things. They have been the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. And the only show I ever found from you guys, or really anywhere, is a show from about 8 or 9 years ago with Don Patterson that goes into it about how he would. And there's only about 5 minutes that he talks about how he goes half Greek yogurt, and then 2 days later he goes force-fed mice tail, and then keep going back and forth for a year. That's basically what he says. And
I mean, we could try to. I think we know a guy who really loves this kind of stuff that we can have come on. Yeah, he wrote a book.
I've talked to him a few times. He's not giving up much more than just everybody else that says. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be something more to it.
He will for us. Yeah,
they're horrible.
He will for us. We know where the bodies are buried, so it'll be fine. Yeah, don't worry. We'll get it.
I don't know who else really does pygmy pythons. I can't think of like. Oh yeah, man! They're awesome snakes.
But
I love my pygmy pythons.
There's not many people that breed them. It's really like my question is, they're not hard to breed. To me, it's how to raise them. Like I'll be honest. Like so, the first year I got them last year, I got 7 beautiful babies. 7 beautiful babies hatched. 7 beautiful babies didn't eat. 7 beautiful babies were force fed for a very long time. 7 beautiful babies died. So I don't know. It was the most frustrating event. Like just one after the other, and they. Like out of about the 4 or 5 month range, they didn't make it. This year, I struck a deal with a friend, and I told him, "You take them all. If you can make them survive, you can get a pair." And you know what? They're all. I think I don't know how we've got 7 or 8, and they're all alive, still eating, and they've got over 25 or 30 meals in them right now. But none of them are eating on their own.
Oh,
right? So. And my understanding is you're force feeding them for up to a year, which then, you end up going like, how much is a snake worth?
I don't want it. I don't want it.
But they're all like that.
Yeah, I know. It's why I don't do blackheads. Yeah.
But like, I just don't get it. Like there's, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, did you ever think about feeding them like a gecko or something?
I've tried a lot of the skins, and I've gotten a few ripped off tails, and I've also bought. I've tried the anoles. Anoles was the only live thing that I could try. The really small, little, tiny brown anoles, and none of that worked. And even after they died, I tried the tails. I tried the legs. I tried the mush, like blender on other things, and all that.
Right. Yeah,
I've tried a lot of different things, and. It doesn't go in it. The weird thing is you open their mouth and you put the mouse or the tail or whatever it is, they'll eat on your hand completely right away. Like I've got, like they will eat right on your hand and they'll go for it, but they'll never pick it up on your own. It's like anyway, I just think it'd be cool if you guys had somebody who's really deep into it, really deep dive. I don't know, just a thought, because I think in 10 years you guys have talked about it for 15 minutes.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, we gotta find somebody. Yeah,
I will hunt this down. I wonder if Ryan Young.
Did Ryan get pygmies?
Yeah, he's produced pygmies.
I don't know. It's not what I. That's not what I.
Accepted, sir.
That's not what I pressure Ryan for. Yeah.
Your pygmy info, and because I need it too.
Yeah,
eventually,
I like it.
Now you're making me regret.
Once they're established, they're amazing. They're the easiest snake to take care of. Like, and they're tame. They don't bite. You've got no issues. Like their feeding response is just like I've had 0 issues. They're the greatest little tiny snake. I mean, the fun thing is you can fit them in anything. Like you don't need any big enclosure. They're less. They're 2 feet or less, right? So they're amazing. You can have a lot of them, and they wouldn't take any room. But you got to get them to that point. So
anyway. It's like I've seen people where they have like the female on a clutch of eggs, like basically
it's in your hands.
It's nuts. That's nuts.
The babies are garter snake sized. It's scary.
Jesus.
Yeah, Ryan. So when I first took a shot at them, I got one from Ryan, and he sent it to me, and it was a year old. And when that thing came in, and I open up the box, and I'm just like, this is a year old?
Yeah.
It's like this. I'm like, what? It's crazy how small they are. Yeah. Jeez. And then holding a retic in your other hand, you're like, what?
A baby pygmy could live inside a retic egg for the first year of its life. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Antaresia. Maybe Peter Birch. Yeah. We will find somebody. Maybe we get a round table pygmy python.
We'll go to annoy them all. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just don't forget to dedicate it to me.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll make sure that that'll be part of the episode. Yeah.
Yes. Cool. All right, man. I don't know. Anything else you want to hit on before we jump off?
I don't know. I think we chatted about the things we wanted to chat. It's always great talking snakes. Cool. So I'm happy.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. All right. Cool. I guess with that being said, we did want to shout out the Canadian Reptile Breeding Expo. It was in Toronto, and it's 9/16 and 9/17, 2 days. So if you're listening to this and you're from Canada, up in that area, you can check that out. So cool. That's the biggest show in Canada, right?
It is, and it probably doesn't compare to the smallest show in the States, but yes.
Yeah, probably. So,
yeah, I still want to get out to the West Coast to see some of those big super shows and stuff. I can't imagine what that's like.
Hey, I get to bid on my vacation starting next week, so I'm going to make sure I get off for Daytona, and then we got to start booking tables.
Tables, trips.
Yep.
I want to see a pygmy python in the wild.
That's what? You can't find that. Well, you might be able to find that in Florida. I don't know.
WA, yes. But, all right, man. Thanks a lot for coming and hanging out with us. It's always appreciated. And what an awesome season you had. And we'll have to catch up again next year when see how you made out. So
anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Awesome.
Totally.
Absolutely. Go ahead,
so
take us out.
I guess the next thing we got to talk about is we got to go through the things. First is subscribe to the Patreon, subscribe to all the shows on the network. Go check out the Teespring store where we have Carpet Fest shirts and things like that up there. Go grab those. Go to Cold Blooded Caffeine to get all your coffee and the NPR blend. Go to Cold Blooded Cafe to get your rats. Do not confuse the two. Use code NPR10 at Cold Blooded Cafe to get 10% off of your entire rodent order. And that 10% off can be added to any deals that they're currently running. So if they say that they're putting 40% off rodents and you go and you can type in NPR10 to get an additional 10%. So keep your eye peeled. They're always running sales on things like that over there. So go check that out. I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it.
Yes. That's it.
Okay, cool. That's all I did it. I did a good job. That's all we have for everybody this week. So we'll catch everybody back here next time for some more Morelia Python Radio. Good night.